So it was the late 1990s, and my Special Forces team was getting ready to go back down to Paraguay. This was a country that we worked with a lot based on how we were regionally aligned, and we'd been working with them for a very long time. Our mission on this particular deployment was to help the Paraguayans build a deeper special operations capacity. They had had a lot of issues with attempted coups to overthrow the government, and the Paraguayan government wanted a stronger central special operations capability. This was a central, vital need at the strategic level. So we were preparing what we call the program of instruction. I was the detachment commander. I was the captain on the team. Homer was the team sergeant, a guy who has mentored me for years. He was like 51, I think, when we were going down this deployment. So he had seen a ton of work downrange. And so we were preparing the programs of instruction. And one of the things that he called me in and he said, look, sir, I think right in this area here, we're doing too much show and tell and we're not working ourselves out of a job. And I was like, what do you mean? And he started to explain to me that, you know, the most important thing that we could do on this deployment was not demonstrate our prowess or our capability, right? Or to provide a short-term skill set, but to work ourselves out of a job. And I mean, this was really something I'd been taught early on in the school for Special Forces and that all Green Berets are taught, but you know, it's kind of easy to forget sometimes. And it just brought me back to center. So we really refocused our program of instruction and we looked hard at not only like what we would teach when we got in there on the short term, but how could we show them what right looks like? And then how could we help them crawl, walk, run, get to where they wanted to be in a short period of time, and then start to step back into more of a tactical overwatch and let them take the lead and demonstrate their capability. And even if they stumbled, kind of like you do with a little baby that's beginning to walk, you don't get in there too fast, you let them make mistakes, and then you intervene when it's absolutely necessary. That was kind of a game-changing moment for me as a professional leader, certainly as a Green Beret, and it's something that I carry with me now as I work with leaders in corporate America and entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders, is this notion of working yourself out of a job. Now, there's really two different levels that you can think about on that. One is when you're dealing with clients, and then the other is as a leader in your own organization. Working yourself out of a job doesn't mean that you make yourself irrelevant to the organization, quite the contrary. What it means is that you actually create opportunities that people around you develop their own capacity so that you can ascend and be even more relevant at a higher level. Doesn't that make sense when you think about it? So if we can work ourselves out of a job, then other people can take what we were doing and we can keep ascending and keep finding new ways to be relevant. It keeps us from getting stagnant and it allows organizations to grow. So if you think about this from a client perspective, whether you are, whether you own an electrical company or a plumbing company, or whether you are a services company where you train people to develop a certain skill set, what I would say is think about it as how do we work ourselves out of a job? The enemy in this situation is usually the temptation to say, how do we keep ourselves relevant to them forever? Right? So we give some of what we've got, but we don't give them the full package, so they're always dependent on us. I think that's the wrong way to come at it, and people will sniff that out. Humans are smart, and people will eventually sniff that out. I say, get them on their feet, work yourself out of a job so that they retain the organic capacity to do what it is that they need to do. And when you do that, what it does is, one, it builds a level of reciprocity with your client. If you go in with the intent of working yourself out of a job to where they truly don't need you anymore, where they have either the product or the service on their own and they can run with it, the reciprocity they're going to feel for you, I guarantee you, they're going to reach out to you again, right? And then the other thing, well, that's the second thing, is they're going to keep coming back because that's going to build a level of trust, right? So when you think about clients, I encourage you to pursue this mindset of working yourself out of a job. A couple of steps to think about it. If you're going to go in and you're going to build a capability in a client organization, right? This is specifically for that. If you're doing a product or a repair or something like that, I think just doing your best work so that they don't need you again is enough said. But if you are a person who teaches leadership or teaches skills to another organization, then I would say go a step further. Go in there, demonstrate what right looks like, and then use a crawl, walk, run method where your client can basically get up on their feet and do what they do. I recently did this with a commercial bank, and with their leadership team, we used crawl, walk, run. We started to look at what the leadership requirements were, and we started to move them in terms of how they worked with each other as a senior leadership team, and we started to just use crawl, walk, and run, get faster and faster until eventually I wasn't really participating in their meetings at all. I was stepping back in more of a tactical overwatch, which is the third step. Once that demonstration of capability is there, step back into just an overwatch and then just intervene as necessary. And then fourth is just follow up, right? So if you teach or train, and you can do this with your kids too, right? It really works great. And if you do that, my promise to you is that it will build reciprocity. People value and appreciate anyone who teaches them or provides them with something they need and then steps back and lets them run with it. And it will probably keep them coming back to you. It builds trust and loyalty. And when you think about that with your clients, that's everything. Because in loyalty, people will forgive you even when you make a mistake. And in trust, you've built a relationship that's bigger than the transaction. And you'll leverage multiple transactions out of that. So by thinking about working yourself out of a job, as we did in those jungles of Paraguay, you can apply the same thing to your clients and frankly with your position in your company. Think about, okay, if this is what I do in my team, how do I work myself out of a job? How do I ensure that if I get hit by a bus or I don't show up at work, everything's gonna keep running? And that way, if I need to go on a trip or if I need to go do something business related, everything's gonna keep working. You do those in the small moments. Same approach, right? Show what right looks like, crawl, walk, run, get into a tactical overwatch once capability's been demonstrated, and then just follow up as necessary. These are the things you do to work yourself out of a job and actually attain higher relevance in your organization. Thanks for what you do, and I'll see you on the rooftop.